Tonight, we're going to talk about this project. It is called Chuck Steele, Knight of the Trampires. And this here is an extremely good looking film so far. And my friend Webster sent me an Instagram from James Carlisle, and it shows this this amazing looking character here, the design, and let's see here. I don't think I can adjust the volume on this or anything. Let me turn off my... Oh, glad to hear that, Paul. That's good. It's been kind of rainy here. It's been raining for like a week. So here's the animation.
Jesus H. Christ on a space hopper.
And it repeats over and over here, but...
Jesus H. Christ on a space hopper.
So this is all, it appears,
Jesus.
It's done in a traditional clay animation sort of way. And what I mean by traditional, where they resculpt these mouths, and for every frame. Now I had a little bit of a hard time understanding what he was talking about here. From what I can understand, he was taking this head and like reanimating the face and putting it on this little base. And the base is locked down. It's epoxy to his table, and he's got K&S tubing that runs through here. 6 months of rain. Yeah, it feels like it's been that long. Has it been that way for you too? Yeah, it's been just too much here. But this face now that I'm showing you guys, I think is really. I thought it was really amazingly well animated.
Christ on a space hopper.
And the thing to think about here is there's no replacement, not replacement.
Jesus
there's no 3D printed replacement faces here, like in Kubo and the Two Strings, where, like Kubo, for example, if you guys have seen that film, the mouths are done in such a way that there's a lot of subtlety in there, and there's a lot of expression, which is, has to be made into replacements. So for something like a simple expression like this, there could be 100 different pieces or so to make that. And in clay, it's essentially where you make a mold and you cast your clay in the mold, and then in front of a camera you can resculpt it. So in here he says, in order to make sure the head registered in the correct position each frame, the K&S base was glued down to the desk along with my desk lamp and 80% of everything else you see in the shot. The head base is a dummy, as I couldn't sculpt on this one and get the exact registration required for it to work. So, I don't know what he means by that. Like, I mean, the base is a dummy. I don't know what he's talking about exactly. Like, what does he mean by dummy? But then he says, therefore, I would sculpt a different head base. I could move freely, then put the head back on the puppet on set, capture my frame, then move the head into this second base. So I think what he's talking about maybe is like there's some sort of a resin head that he's replaced, like sticking the mouth onto and then replacing that part. He doesn't really make it completely clear what he means by head. Like I'm thinking the head is the whole thing, but in that sense it wouldn't make any sense. But then he says he would capture the time-lapse frame and repeat. So again, this isn't time-lapse either, so it's really confusing. Like, it's not time-lapse. That would be where you can see him like working on the puppet, right? And he's just like taking random frames. This is not random frames. So the whole thing doesn't make sense to me. But the camera used for the time-lapse wasn't connected to the computer, so it was all shot completely blind. Any cut back frames were noted on the camera with a blank frame. So in other words, he's animating this without a capture device or a capture program, and then if he screws up, he has to make a note by putting like a little piece of paper in there. And he says, then when the shot was loaded onto Dragon Frame, the cutback frames were deleted. So, yeah, you wouldn't really need a frame grabber for this because you could stick it back on there and it would register properly. So I don't really understand but it's just, I don't know if you guys really understand what he's doing there. But to me it sounds like he's got a head which is a permanent, perhaps resin head, and then he's just putting the mouths on there, and then he's taking the mouths off of this and putting it on the puppet on his actual set. And then this here is just captured separately, probably because they only have one copy of Dragon Frame, and then it's just easier to do that way. But anyway, so it didn't really help me understand what he was doing by reading his description.
Christ on a
But
space
the
opera.
animation looks really pretty darn awesome. And not too many people do it this way anymore.
Jesus H. Christ on a space opera.
So it's really, it's the low-tech way of getting extremely good expressions. Just by straight-ahead clay animation, frame by frame. Yeah, no 3D printing. Hey, Hoser Lou, how's it going? Now, Janet says if I be someday on red carpets and an after party, I can gain anything or only memories. Well, I think you would definitely, if you had been to the Oscars on the red carpet, you would probably see a lot of celebrities. So you'd have memories of that, right? But in terms of gaining anything, I believe so, because I think you had to be invited to that, and I'm pretty sure that you had to have some sort of ability to make good films, at least, to get on a red carpet. So, yeah, it wouldn't hurt, for sure. Especially having your own picture there, like taking pictures. And now, Ron says, Janet, if you're on a red carpet, you're the center of attention and can have people take you more seriously for future work and career moves. Hey, Randy. How are you? So, back to Chuck Steele here. So, I checked out their website, and they've got some trailers and things. This one here is for Chuck Steele, Night of the Trampires. Now, keep in mind, everybody, this is not like family-friendly stuff, but if you're into the art and understanding it, it's really cool. So I'm going to take it off mute, and we're going to watch the teaser trailer number 1.
Okay, old man, start talking.
You have made a terrible mistake. That lady must be destroyed.
According to immigration, you are one Abraham Van Rentel. That your real name?
She has been bitten. In a few hours, her transformation will be complete, and she will be consumed with an unholy bloodlust.
Okay.
Tell me, you have heard of vampires, no?
Sure.
But have you ever heard of trampires?
Are you on drugs?
Steal!
So there it is, pretty awesome. And now you can actually watch their first film. Here is a link to it. We're not going to actually watch it. Except maybe the first opening sequence here. Let's see if it's there. Oh. So it kind of has this feel of like the Terminator and a lot of cult classics that you've probably seen. And you can expect a lot of one-liners and just general snarkiness,
This is Captain Jack Shit, LAPD. Put down your weapons and come out with your hands up. Screw you, pig. If we don't get up.
So, and it's just, some of the most best animation out there right now in terms of clay animation, probably outside of Aardman. And so So on their website, they have like a whole cast of characters. And this is for their first one. So this is the Raging Balls of Steel Justice. And so all these characters, like I say, they're clay, highly expressive. And I believe they have ball and socket armatures in there. I'm not 100% sure on that, but see if I can get this to load. This might be slow loading here. Let's see. Let's see if we can get it to work. But the set building and everything is really, you know, it's intricate. The lighting is well done. There's camera moves in there. So it has the feel of really just the top-notch stop motion production. Some really cool. I guess maybe that's not a. Is that a Trampire or not? That's probably from the first one. Yeah, I think. Let me see if their Facebook page loads up. Oh, got people talking to me here. Photos. I wonder if I can close this chat somehow. There we go. Okay. Yeah, this gallery might load faster, so I'm gonna kind of let's go through some of these pictures. Yep, it is. It's kind of like Robot Chicken. It's kind of like Aardman, and as Ron says, it's like Aardman, the dark side. Yep. And Ron says it's better than Robot Chicken in terms of puppet work. Yeah, it absolutely is really, really good. I mean, the puppets are not half, you know, made in a very quick manner. It's definitely a slow process, and they take pride in their work, which is really shows through in their animation and designs and lighting. So here's this one says we have a small army of dynamic perception MoCo rigs at Animortal, and they always get the job done. So I imagine this probably works with Dragon Frame. I'm presuming. There's a lot of axes on here, so we've got, you know, like a tilt, pan, and you can probably, you know, you can put your camera sideways on here, I imagine, and get this to either be a truck shot or, let's see. And this one says always looks good under neon bar lights. Does Jason? He's doing a good job of that animation thing too. And the sets are big, you know. I mean, look at the size of the sets. They have a nice amount of space and everything to really do everything that you would probably need without much hindrance. Like trying to do this in a garage is not very easy. So you need to have a nice size studio. Hey Adam, welcome back. And Adam says, looks like some good quality. Way to go, Wales. Yeah. And it's very clean, you know. Chuck Steele here almost looks like he's cast in resin. Like he doesn't look like he's made from clay. And I'm not really sure what sort of clay they're using. If that's, you know, your new plast, like what Aardman uses, or if that is some sort of special blend that they're using, or perhaps like a hybrid. I mean, my guess is, like I said, when we watched this Instagram, it seemed like he's hinting that these are partially plastic or something, and then they're sticking faces on, but I'm really not sure about that. So amazing how much horror and gore this pair can create. Entrails with a smile. So lots of entrails. It's all in the detail. Helipad, light, Chuck Steele, indie film, stop motion. So they wired up a single LED there. And you know, I'm not really sure if they're using foam latex or silicone. I would presume silicone. I think, you know, foam latex in stop motion puppets works really well, but I think nowadays silicone is pretty darn easy to get, and it's cheap and it's more durable. It's not really as light as foam latex, but I think most productions would probably go with silicone. However, this looks kind of like latex here. And Hoserlu is saying that they're over 12 inches tall. Yeah, they are very large puppets. And you can get a lot of detail that way, which is nice. And Ron is saying, size is a big deal, pun intended, but or because I've shot most all of my realistic stop motion animation special effects on very small scale, and that makes it a lot harder. Yeah, you know, you could get a lot more subtlety in a larger puppet. I think if you think about in the past when, for example, Willis O'Brien and Marcel Delgado, they made all their dinosaur puppets, and King Kong. King Kong was pretty large, you know. And although Willis O'Brien didn't have Dragon Frame and Stop Motion Pro and, you know, Monkey Jam or anything, you know, or lunch boxes to check his animation, so he couldn't really get a lot of subtlety out of that. But you can get a lot more subtle animation out of larger puppets, and I think a good example of that would be like the walkers in Empire Strikes Back. You know, those walkers were, I believe, like maybe how tall? I'm gonna say like 30 inches or so tall. I don't know what do you guys think about that? Because there's actually different scales. There were some which were, you know, really small, but I think 30 inches is about right. And it looked realistic. It looked absolutely real. Speaking of real, this says Bigfoot is real. That's pretty cool. Look at the details here. They're really, I mean, there's a lot of precise details in this little slot machine here. It's got like maybe printouts. I'm not sure how they're making all this stuff, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. So a little light up sign. It almost looks like they're really using a neon sign there too. It has like that look to it. I'm willing to bet they're using some of those, there's like these wire strips that light up, and they're small, and they're like powered by AAA batteries. I forget what you call those. It looks kind of like they're using that, but I can't really be sure. And this one says, Vicky collects some eyeballs. From Gary to drill. Really? She's gonna drill eyeballs. So they've got like this little rig here too. Wonder what they're doing exactly here. It's got some alligator clips and some K&S tubing. Maybe it's just so that they can paint stuff and it will dry without having to set it down or something. And Janet is asking, have you tried to enter the Star Wars Omaze.com Experiences Fest? Yeah, that's yeah, you can you can, if you win, it's like you donate money to their foundation, and then if you win, I believe you can get a meet and greet with one of the actors or actresses from the film. It's pretty cool. And so Ron says, Douglas Trumbull swears by shooting the largest miniatures possible because if it's big in real life, it will look big on screen. Yeah. So look at the scale of the sets here. this is inside that warehouse that they built for, I guess, the first film. And that is big. And I can't really tell. Is that dragon frame here? I think that might be dragon frame. So this is set up to shoot our talking heads footage for behind the scenes. This reminds me of Gentleman Films. They built a table like this for a bar, and it was a bar table in one of their shots that was large like that. Looks just like it. That's kind of ironic. With the results of Laura's chuck hunt laid out before her, she goes about sculpting her next trophy head. So see what they've done here. They've got what looks like a series of replacement faces. And it says she's sculpting it. So yeah, I'm really curious what their process is. I'm sure someone's probably told me in the past and I've just forgotten, because I hear about a lot of projects. But man, it's such a... their animation just looks awesome. So animator Gareth's big entrance through teeny tiny doorway. So here's another large piece of their set. That's pretty fantastic. Hey Ethan, welcome back. And Ron says, my puppets for In the Fall of Gravity were really large, much better for subtle animation. Some weird and wonderful contraptions we make here at Animortal. Yeah, I wish I could have one of the producers on and interview them for our show just to see if they could tell us how they made all these things and what their process is in terms of funding. And yeah, I really think that they could definitely fundraise on the internet from the quality of their work. I think they'd have a large fan base, I would think. Let me see if they've got... I don't believe this is a... Is this an official YouTube channel? I don't believe so. Let me see if I can... Short film cut. No, I don't believe it is. Here's their Vimeo. Let's see if they have a lot of followers or subscribers. Chuck Steele. No, 44 followers. Doesn't seem like a lot, considering the quality of their work. But I guess maybe one reason why is they probably aren't releasing a lot of videos on here, so without constant videos to look at, people might not want to follow them. So I wonder what their business model is. Wow, here's a very large scale head. Speaking of large, check that out. So boss fight. Director Mike Mort takes on Chuck Steele. Sculpt his face off, boss. So yeah, check out how large that is. So you could really get a lot of subtlety in there. I wonder if... Yeah, so obviously they definitely had the same philosophical approach to... or maybe not philosophical, but... they definitely like large puppets. Yeah, I don't know. Hoser Lou is asking, I wonder who's bankrolling this. I'm not sure. Could be independent investors, you know, that just know them personally, perhaps, or maybe they've I don't know. But it's definitely a worthwhile investment for sure. Look at that. That's amazing. Smashed up car. I wonder if they're using model kits for this and then like taking a heat gun and melting some of the plastic and bending it and you know, smashing it up and scratching it, and that looks great. Beer, we want more beer, but in larger cans than that, so we stand a chance of getting drunk. Lots of beer cans. Pretty sure these are just like toys, repurposed toys of some sort. Animator Leo swamped by his set and deep in concentration on his current shot. That. Or trawling YouTube for funny cats. Yeah, that would probably be about 1/4 scale, that large head they were working with. Doug is not cleared to use sharp implements. However, Chuck Steele has. Diva. Fits on set, so exceptions are made for the greater good. So different scale heads, and so Vicky is one of the few sensibles here at Animortal, cleared to use sharp implements. It's got a sewing machine. Look at this. So she's probably the seamstress of sorts. Probably making the clothes, and that's kind of cool. All right, simple joke there. So 100% finance. So check that out. They've got like some sort of a mesh wire for the fence, and wonder how they made the barbed wire. That's pretty cool. Seems like they use something like perhaps more of this metal wire and just cut along each one so that there's like a little piece of steel on there like that. Let me see if I can expand this here. There we go. Kind of makes it better. It's not properly centered, but yeah, I think they probably got some sort of a chicken wire of sorts here, and to make the barbed wire, I think they just cut it along the wire, but not cutting it too close so that there's some little nubs sticking out for the sharp parts of their barbed wire. That would be my guess. And Garrus' Christmas jumper game is strong. That is all. Merry Chimichanga. And it says here, Electro AI rips apart lighting rigs to custom build a searchlight that can be animated and controlled through Dragon Frame. How about that? That's pretty cool. So they probably hooked up some stepper motors on there, I would imagine. And that does not seem like an easy task. Does not. And they've got a lens on the end, probably to focus it where it needs to go. And that seems to have like some different inputs for power, or maybe for the controller box of some sort that they've got in between, or wow, I don't know. So Ron says, I doubt the cans are toys, because if they have a serious budget, there is more of a concern about copyright. Better to create original work for the labels. Yeah, I think the labels definitely are, but the cans themselves, I'm thinking they probably can just get one and cast it or something, make a mold. Whatever makes him happy today. It's funk, chocolate, and chess, albeit from what looks like sculpted cheesy Watsits. What's a Watsit? I think that's a British term. Moko and camera wrangler Tim wrangles a camera in Moko unit. Well, that was fairly self-explanatory in the end. Actually, it was. It seems so complicated, doesn't it? They've got all these gears and everything else. It's not all smoke and mirrors at an immortal. Okay, so there are some mirrors, and when things burn, there is also smoke. Paul doesn't care. I think what they're saying is his head is kind of close to that light there. Practical Spark AI, or is it Albar Wrangles? I don't know why I read that as AI. Probably because I read a lot of science websites. Wrangles electricity like Raiden from Mortal Kombat, but with a more sensible attire. Okay, so I wonder what they're doing there with practical sparks. Or maybe it's just another term that it's over my head. Oh, a what's it is whatever. Ah, okay. Yeah, my brain is pretty slow lately. Too much sculpting, I think. I might be losing intellectual brain cells, but my artistic brain cells are growing, so there's a trade-off. So happy Halloween. Have a great weekend. Night of the Trumpires. Oh boy. And don't let the smile and wave fool you. If you do not have cake, Mr. Calder will not let you through. What if you have cake and it's the wrong flavor? Gotta be careful. And Sarah's amazing painting, creating and fabrication application co. So they have a pretty large team. One of the parts of their website that I've noticed is, let's see, where is it here? They have a production crew section, and their crew is pretty large. And I was scrolling through here, and I thought, you ever notice that sculptors tend to look like their sculptures? So I was scrolling through here, and I was scrolling and scrolling, and I'm like, oh, this guy kind of looks like Chuck Steele. And guess what? It says it right there. He's the sculptor. So there's definitely something to sculptors looking like their creations, for sure. So Nathan Flynn and Joshua Flynn. So the Flynn brothers, they had a website, or they probably still have a website out there of their creations. And before they worked on this production, they were making some really super awesome, I mean, you can tell just by looking at Chuck Steele, of course, but even back, several, a few years ago, they were really honing in on their skills and making puppets, and I guess, this team here was like, we need those guys to help us out and make some characters and things. And it's just kind of cool to see how people have worked their way up the ladder just by essentially making amazing art. Now their blog on their website is actually about the worst stop motion blog I've ever seen. Just gonna be honest here. They don't actually add anything in terms of, I mean, they've got photos and everything, and but they just got these promotional pictures of, let's see, and you can't even expand it when I click it. And it just says the same thing on each one. Basically, visit our Facebook page. So if you guys want the juicy tidbits, just visit their Facebook page. And this one is the Chuck Steele the movie, and I'm not sure if they have a Night of the Trampires one. We might have to check that out, actually. I guess I haven't liked this page. Let me like it as well. Okay. So this one here says, these sets don't dress themselves. Good job they don't have to then. you can see, they've got like a mailbox here, you know. They've got some drains and for water, and they've got the tiles and pretty much every single detail. Like I said before, the details are just absolutely amazing. This one says, "Oh dear, what a careless," or that was careless. Trampire, splat, Chuck Steele, cons. Lots of humor. So here's a good one where you can see the scale of the puppet with the animator as well. It says here, Sean checking over his next frame of Chuck Steele antics in anything but natural light. And that's Sarah, and lends a hand in the puppet department. No pun intended, I suppose. Lucozade. I don't think that's an art material. I think that's one of her drinks. So graphics man Romano hitting them digital switches for Chuck Steele. So speaking of what Ron was talking about with the beer bottles or beer cans, he's probably making up all kinds of designs right here to print out for things like that. And Ron is absolutely right. You don't want to go to a toy store and you want to make sure everything is at least not recognizable as bought. So Master of Puppets Sam and art department head Bridget put their heads together for a solution dev. So they've got like a shopping cart there, which looks really intricate. And looks like perhaps a mock-up of some buildings, and that they might put it in the background or something right there. And maybe some sort of bridge pieces here for a bridge, or and also it looks like if you look back here, like they've got a large printout of a building lit up at night, and I would assume that something like this was probably printed out and just glued onto some styrofoam blocks here. I think that might be what this is. Real photos of buildings that are stuck on styrofoam. What do you guys think? Kind of would make sense, wouldn't it, to make it look realistic without having to do a lot of painting and model making? I know, like on in the past, if you watch any of the Ghostbusters movies from the 80s, or something like E.T., Steven Spielberg, where they made all the sets practically, they would use like matte paintings and things, so which is all two-dimensional, but it can look really vast if you set it up properly. So Janet says, if you can win, be on movie set and meet directors, or be on premiere, red carpet, and attend the exclusive star-studded after party. What is better for future career? Well, if you want a career, you got to work at that. You know, and not so much on trying to win the contest, you know, of course. So art department head Phil does it old school, stop motion animation set design. Yeah, that's definitely old school right there. There's no computers. Looks like he's making a water tower from what I can tell. That's awesome. Alright, now multi-dexterous to anamortal trampires are a dime a dozen around here. So obviously this Chuck Steele the movie, this is from 2016, so this is not that old. So this is actually from Night of the Trampires. So their Chuck Steele the movie Facebook page is covering both films that they worked on, which I was kind of wondering before, but I'm pretty convinced of it now that that's the way it is. So what can we see here? Got some clamps and things. That's probably like their woodworking department. So biggest animator, smallest space. Pretty sure Darren is also a contortionist. So this would be considered a small set, and to me, that's a large set. Like if I built a set and it was that big and it was in my garage, this takes up a lot of space. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to look good doing it. Perfectly pouring puppets in stop motion. So these are hard molds. These must be... So the question of silicone and foam latex. I had said that they would probably use silicone. The question I have is, why does she need a respirator? What is the toxic chemical that she would need to protect herself from if it's silicone? That would be a question that, of course, only they can answer. But I'm kind of curious because usually silicone doesn't have much of an odor to it. And if it was foam latex, there would be ammonia. But it probably wouldn't be too strong. But if it's something of a concern, maybe that's why? Huh. Prop fabrication on Night of the Trampires. Alright, Matt leads today's lonely charge. Wow, that's a big, well, for me that's big, a big place. Richard Stradling, jobs like a boss. Runner to art departmentalists. So, seems like pretty much everybody's working on pretty much everything. Got woodworking, clothing, casting. Juan eyes up a shot before letting his cannon loose. Lots of practical lighting right there. Carnival lights. And this here is kind of astounding. Wow. So, yeah, I am curious to see this shot completed. It looks like they're under a tunnel on a highway of sorts. It says here, how about another frame from Chuck Steele, None of the Trampires? So they've got some models, they've got puppets, they've got practical lighting, and it looks like it's really in a tunnel. They must have built that. Wow. That's got to be huge. And I wonder how long it goes or how far it goes in there. Wow. That's astounding. So, it says here, Sean gets acquainted with Chuck's attitude in the spotlight. So I wonder, this must be the spotlight that we saw before where they were controlling it with Dragon Frame. Can't really see it though, it's too bright, but it's back here. I imagine maybe it's either like a police helicopter or something. You can catch flies with honey, but you catch more honey being fly. Okay. So I imagine, you know, all of these witty little sayings here, I think, would be integral to the whole entire film. I'm sure that Chuck Steele has a ton of those one-liners for sure. That's pretty neat. I guess they've got like a rig off to the side with just some ball and socket joints, which they'll remove digitally, I guess. And wonder where the camera would be. Probably from the front. Looks like from the angle that it's at, that would be a rim light here. So Leo is about to be pinned down by a gang of deadly ninjas. It's like maybe they're in like a trailer park, or is that? Oh, that's on top of a building roof. Okay, so there's like a building theme. They're obviously in the city someplace. So yeah, I guess Janet's question, people are talking about that, and I think, yeah, there's always benefits. Like if you were to actually get out there, and mingle with perhaps Nick Park or someone like Travis Knight, someone that's big, like a CEO of a company, or Peter Lord, for example, or any of the big names. If you were able to give them, your business card, there's definitely benefits to it, to getting out there, and of course, contacting people and getting phone numbers. Yeah, so I think Randy and Ron are both right. You have to actually have some good work. Like if you want to get noticed and work, for example, on Chuck Steele, you got to have a portfolio maybe of puppet work that you've done so that they can see what you do. Or perhaps, it just depends on what you want. If you want to be an animator, you want to have a demo reel to show them. Cat in wardrobe serenely pursues her cache of costumes. So a lot of different chemicals and glues and all kinds of stuff in here for making clothing. Probably similar to what you'd use for making full-size clothes, I guess. And wow, cool. So this must be what the searchlight was on. The spotlight. I bet that this is part of that. Ian invites you to check out the size of his chopper. And Ron says, with regards to going to getting on a red carpet, he says mingling is something you do all the time as much as possible. It's not a red carpet thing only. Yep. Gotta make contacts out there. It's helpful. Steph making and molding something awesome, no doubt. It's always something awesome. And I noticed that their molds are gray in color, which is interesting too to me. I wonder what materials they're using, because their characters are presumably clay. There's clay in there, and there's also silicone. So you would think that you would kind of need to have, soft molds, hard molds. So Jody sets up the smoking man inside. Don't worry, it was okay to do that in the 80s. That's true. Animator Jason tweaks a character with a horde of Chuck quiffs looking on. So see, again, they've got a lot of Chuck Steele cast over here, and it makes me wonder if they've sculpted the mouths differently and then recast them and made replacements and then painted those replacements, or what. I have a lot of questions. I don't know. So here's another animator. Rita is checking her next frame. Not sure she's aware she's getting papped. Another happy looking animator. Looks like Chuck just told a joke. So here's the shot. Check out what it looks like on his capture program, Dragon Frame here. It looks like somewhat of a close-up of Chuck's face, and there's all these tramp hires behind him. Looks like maybe they caught him or something. And I wonder what kind of lens that is too. Anyways. Animator 1 looks proper happy with himself whilst cleaning up a puppet. So here you can see how the head is connecting to the bodies. There's a a cavity in there and a hole probably for some tubing. Okay. So Ron is saying the gray molds are a filled urethane plastic and it stinks. That's the reason for the respirator. I had a bunch of those here in my shop and they never stopped stinking. Wow. Filled as in plastic filled with filler, not a filled mold. Okay. So the smell kind of lingers forever? Is that what you're saying? That wouldn't be very nice. I wouldn't like that. Even if it was a really nice, if it gave you good results, if the garage had to smell for a few years of plastic, I don't think I'd be happy. So check out this lighting system here. This is insanity. So Andy buried deep on the set of Night of the Trampire. So they've got how many lights here? They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lights. Actually 11. This one here looks like an 11th light. With diffusion material on it. So 11 lights for this one shot. That is crazy. Wow. Crazy and awesome at the same time. Tim eyes up his next frame on the set of Chuck Steele. So that's cool. So they've got like a rig on their puppet here also. A couple of rigs. And I guess for the purpose of not having to use their legs on the set to tie them down that way. I guess it's just easier to use a model mover. And then we've got here the camera seems to be set up on... I don't think that's motorized. Looks like they're just knobs on there or something. So probably a lockdown shot. So now, before I was mentioning that it looked as though they had printed out a large image of an actual city skyline, and it looks here like I'm right about that. It looks like behind there they've got like a wallpaper of it. Just a bunch of probably like a banner shop or something, maybe a banner that was printed out. That looks pretty cool. And again, they've got this fence material, this like wire mesh fence material. Proper scale fence material for the puppets. And Captain Callow, head of visual wonderment, VFX. So I guess he's perhaps editing his shot there. It says here, James makes back Ellie's scallies look good. So yeah, look at the lighting here, and it's really beautiful. I mean, they've got like this contrasting blue-green light with orange and pinks. It just looks nice. And then the white light where the actual action is. I'm just thinking that looks pretty amazing. Whoever their director of photography is really good. And Ron says, I had those gray molds on the film Faceless Neil, and I couldn't wait for them to take the molds back. I had to keep them in a drawer to tamp down the smell. Wow. Is that a smooth-on product, Ron? Or is that something that I've never heard? Is it like a specific type of product? Because there's resins out there. It seems like if you want to have a resin that encapsulates a sculpture, you could put a layer of resin down and then perhaps ultracal or plaster over that just to make it hard, you know? Or use like fiberglass. It seems like there's ways around that problem. Unless the filler allows it to breathe. Maybe there's a reason for it to be that way. So here's a postcard. That's pretty awesome. Burial deep in camping land. So he's trying to get some green screen stuff taken out and backgrounds put in, and sounds like general editing work. So Dan's digital nest, you can see his slippers. Danny got help in the form of various desk creatures. So I imagine that's like Adobe Premiere or something here. Not really sure. Ed and Chuck having words on set. So I got a very film noir look here with black and white and all that good stuff. Ron says, not smooth on, I think from BJB. Ralph Cordero made the molds and they work great. Super hard and accurate, but the plastic just never stops emitting fumes. Yeah, I think that's why they used to call, what was Ralph's studio called? Is it Toxic Mama Studios or Toxic Papa Studios? Wow, this is a lot of puppets, and you know, this is really comparable to Leica for sure. Check that out, that's awesome. So I guess this is, you can see back here what the shot looks like. So I think Chuck Steele evidently gets captured by the trampires or something. That's the way this shot looks. A horde of trampires. Sam's all mouth today. Huh. Your one-stop shop. When giants dress storefronts, this is what it looks like. So I wonder how far along this film project is. It seems like it must be pretty far along if they're editing everything and staying busy. Wow. Again, the set detail is really beautiful. Like, everything is very accurate, I guess you could say, to what it would be like. Oh, it was Toxic Mama Studio. Yeah, Toxic Mom. For Lisa Cordero. Yep. Yeah, that is a true romance between two people. Ralph and Lisa. He was so upset when she passed away. So, oh, okay. So here is that tunnel set. It looks like perhaps the scale here is small, and they're putting their camera inside there and doing the animation, and then they're probably using chroma key with their puppets. That's probably how they're doing that. Otherwise, you know, the trucks and the cars would be pretty large inside there, I think. So Randy says at Vinton's, I animated the crowd scene for a Jerry Springer episode during Gary and Mike. It was 20 puppets, 4 rows of 5. They stamped it over and over so it looked like a crowd of 200. Wow, that's cool. Jerry. Art Department Angels. Animators need total darkness and also blinding light at the same time. Cool. See, he's definitely sculpting it, so it seems like their faces are clay. But other times they seem like they're cast in resin, so, it's confusing me. And Ron says, I was friends with both Ralph and Lisa at the start of our careers here in New York before they moved out to California. Oh, okay. Yeah, Ralph's a nice guy. I think he was going through some tough times. Well, he's gone through tough times several times, but yeah, he could he's like the most ultimate artist, and he has a hard time getting work. It's unusual, you know. I mean, he can probably create anything anybody requests of that guy. I mean, he's from molds to toys, and I mean, you could probably could have asked him for advice on the toy that you were making, Ron. I mean, he'd probably tell you exactly his process. And Randy says, that's so cool. Lisa took me under her wing in Portland, and I hung around at their house a few times in Portland. Awesome place they had. Cool. So here's their gambling machines here. Looks like they've got wires for LEDs. I'm sure they can animate that all with some kind of tool that they probably stick in there to turn these things, and that is fantastic. So here's Hannah from the art department working with the Flora for a set. So again, it says here, dynamic perception MoCo rigs are an integral part of shooting. Now, what is this? Looks like there's a guy there in the corner. Wonder what happened to that guy. All right. Well, anyways, I imagine, so let's see, what time is it? 9:05 here, so it does conclude our show tonight already. That's pretty astoundingly fast, feels like. Next week, hopefully, if everything goes as planned, we will be working again on our short film, creating some more puppets on the film before, let me see here, this one. Here we go. All right. Because I did build some set pieces for the film already without you guys. So before we end the show, if you guys want to follow this particular project and like it on Facebook, do a search for Chuck Steele the Movie, and it's at Chuck Steele the Movie is the way to search for it, I guess. It says here, search for that on Facebook or in Messenger to find this page easily. Also, let's see here. Their website is nightofthetrampires.com. So that's their website. You can find it. And on Vimeo, it is simply called Chuck Steele. Steel. All right. Well, anyways, thanks everybody. I will see you guys all next week. Goodbye.